Welcome to another episode of the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast, the show where we empower coaches and experts to use podcasting as a powerful tool to drive sales and grow their business. I'm your host, Karen Roberts, and today I'm excited to have Lindsay McLaughlin. Now, she helps entrepreneurs, coaches, and consultants earn predictable additional income by running their own Athena Network Community or Athena Networking Group in their communities. So Lindsay joined Athena more than 15 years ago as a member initially to promote and grow and evolve her newly created business. Now, from that, she grew both personally and professionally by learning from her network. She grew and sold to Athena regions or businesses, and now she's working with the founder to attract other women to the part-time business opportunity. So welcome to the show, Lindsay.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
So would you like to share a little bit of your backstory? What was the inspiration in the beginning, back when you started your business, to actually even join a Women in Business networking group?
Yes. Well, this is a bit of a sort of, I didn't know what I wanted story, really, and a bit of serendipity thrown in. I'm a mum of three girls, so I had always worked around the children when they were young. And when the youngest one, Anna, went into reception when she was about 5, I thought to myself, I can do something different now. And what did I do before I had children? So I sort of looked back at my world and thought, what was I good at? What did I enjoy? And so I decided to start a proofreading, blogging, and copywriting business. So I set up the website, I created some business cards, and I waited. Nothing happened. No leads. So it's in this hallway right here at the desk I'm sitting at right now. Kids were at school. I was alone, and I was thinking, well, there's got to be more to this. What have I done? Is this going to work? And it was a chance conversation with somebody that I know who was asking me how I was getting on. And so I said, well, I'm all ready. I've got the skills, I've got the website, I've got the idea, but nothing's really sort of turned up yet. So she said, you've got to go networking. And honestly, I just quaked in my shoes. I thought, oh, this sounds terrible. So I sort of went, oh, no, I'll carry on as I am. So she came back round about a couple of weeks later and said, any news? No news. So she took me to an Athena meeting. So this was about 10 minutes away from the house. It was over lunch in those days. And I walked in. And I didn't know anything about networking beforehand, and I didn't, coming from a sort of corporate background prior to having the children, I didn't really know about this world, to be honest with you. So I went into the meeting, met the most incredible women, and I joined that day. And I really didn't know what I was in for, and I didn't know what was going to happen next. All I knew was that this was a good idea, and what came from it would come from it. So I learned how to network through the training that comes with Athena, but also from the women around me. I've watched the women around me and how they were operating and their generous outlook and their way they were just interested in other people, in my business and how it was evolving, but also their own and the other people in the room. So after a while, I'd sort of fallen in love with it. And I certainly looked forward to each meeting and having one-to-ones in between with other women that I met. I sort of decided that I was going to commit all of my networking to Athena. I'd found a world that I didn't know existed, but I fitted. And it fitted me. I felt at home. I felt I was going to learn an awful lot. So I put all my eggs in Athena's basket. So what happened later, a few years later, as I met a lady, her name's Cram. So if she watches this, she'll love it that I've given her a mention. She was running Indian curry cooking business at the time, and I was having some success with social media. We had a one-to-one meeting, and she said, I'd love to work with you, Lindsay, but what can we do? And we were banging our heads together because we knew we could do something, but what was it? So I said, I know what, why don't you on Wednesday week make a curry? and I will set the agenda on social media, and I'll get the people. And then we'll have a networking event for fun over your curry. And well, the idea just flew. Sold out within 24 hours. And this created an annual networking event in Henley-on-Thames for the next 6 or 7 years for about 100 plus women, sold out by half term every year. We had an incredible speaker each time talking about inspirational stories, and it became a thing. So what I learned during these events over Christmas was that I was actually quite good at going, you need to know you, and you need to meet this person over there, and the connections and the collaborations that flowed from it. But also I enjoyed the hosting and the leadership process. So that idea was perhaps bubbling a little bit when the next thing happened. And the next thing was a serendipitous event, really, because I was at an Athena meeting, and the leader there in Maidenhead and Marlow at the time stood up that day, and she said, I want to sell my Athena business. And I went, I want it. But the words were out before I'd even thought about it. So after the meeting, I said, okay, I've said that, but I don't know what it means. So she said, it's a franchise, and you get to run up to 4 groups, and you get a reasonable income. You can run your other business alongside it. And so I said, oh, so how much is it? So she told me. And then I found out that you can get a loan to subsidize that. You can get a loan to support it. And suddenly the whole thing became achievable. And so I knew I wanted it. It was just the mechanics and learning about working with a franchise. So I took that business over with Maidenhead and Marlow, loved it. I left my previous business behind. I didn't have to, but I wanted to, so that I could focus on the women in the room and their business growth. And again, this is a part-time thing, and I grew that business. And then I took on a second region. This time it was a virgin territory, which means it's a patch without any groups in it. So I launched that online in 2020, meeting people entirely online and bringing them together, launched groups online with women signing up for seats before the launch, even in 2020. So I was now running 2 fabulous groups, loaded up with women who are inspirational, extraordinary in different ways. But also because we were online, I was meeting members from across the entire Athena community, which was something that could never have existed before, just through geography when we were offline. So that brought me to a lovely place where I had 2 regions, both doing really, really well. I was a leader, I'd grown. And then my children are no longer in primary school, they're in secondary school. They need me less. So I was obviously having more time with business and so on and so forth. And then my husband said he wanted to take early retirement. So I thought, what am I going to do? How's this going to work with my business? It's online, so presumably I can run it from wherever. But also I wanted to be more present in my girls' lives, or with my husband and I both did, while they're in their university time and before they're kind of like less within our control, if you have control at the stage. So he took early retirement, and then I sold both my regions to other women who were going to pick up where I left off. One was a member already, one wasn't. And then next thing happened, the founder gave me a call and said, would you like to work with me to find other people to lead regions around the country? And so that's what I've been doing for the last year. So that's my story, and it's based on not knowing what I wanted and a bit of serendipity thrown in, but a whole pile of love.
Amazing. Isn't it funny that, when you are ready, the teacher shall appear, right? So you've gone with this initial goal of just growing your business, and then it's just turned into something completely different because you don't know what you don't know. So with regards for helping women actually take on, you're talking about a franchise. So there must be a particular process then that you follow to help these women get this sort of, predictable additional income. So how does it all work?
Okay, well, women from the UK come to us and they say they want to run an Athena business. What they come with is a can-do attitude and an interest in working with women. That's all we're looking for, warm, personable women who are interested in growing groups in the country. So that's how they arrive, okay? The franchise part of it is really the framework, the mechanism. So we have the knowledge, we have the know-how, we have the training, we have the tools, we have 20 years ongoing networking experience, we have the knowledge. So that's what we invest in the woman, okay? So the woman then becomes the go-to networking strategist for that area. So how does it work? So she becomes a regional director, a franchisee, by going through an admin process. She can also apply for funding to support the investment. And that's a very simple process, and we help people through that. And you get a government startup loan just exactly for this purpose. Okay, so that's the funding side of it. So now that lady is now a franchisee. They're a regional director for their area in the UK. So now comes the training. And so the best way to reply on this is to say that the training is split down into 3 parts. And at the moment, they don't have any groups in their region. It's an empty territory. So it's all about the first group launch, which is about 3 months away from when they arrive. And they run this usually alongside another business. So it's all part-time. And it can be folded in amongst your other commitments. So in amongst that time, in that 3-month period, there is training from the founder who invented Athena in the first place. So she's still here, still leading us, inspiring us and motivating us. So she's the trainer, she's the leader, and she shows how you find the women in your community to form your first group, how you gather the people, how you create the noise and say to that area, this is something new and different. This is not happening in your area at the moment. This is going to give you all of these things that you haven't got presently. This is what it's going to mean to you. Come to our launch, come to our launch. So we prepare them for the pre-launch. Then there's the launch, which might be offline or online. It depends on a number of factors. Then there's the launch. So that's been tried and tested many, many times before. So on goes the launch, either online or offline. Then there's the first meeting, and then it's the training to actually retain the people afterwards. So it's about attraction and retention. And with Athena, you get ongoing training throughout. There's the initial and then ongoing. But also you become a member of a really strong team with wisdom and experience just from your colleagues, never mind what Jacqueline's bringing as well. So you're not on your own, and you are supported and you are trained. What you bring is an interest in women, an interest in growth, and a yes, tell me how to do it attitude. Let's go. And that's it. So you become a networking strategist for your region.
So, I mean, networking, it brings so many benefits because anybody in business, everybody knows that the 2 things they need to do to grow their business is, well, they know they need to be creating content somewhere, and they know they need to build relationships. That's how the business comes in. So, but just like you shared that first time, you were a bit like, what do you think is it that stops people or puts people off from joining a networking group?
I think some people think, and I certainly did back in the day when I was sitting here on that very first day and that lady suggested I go to networking group, was I thought everybody in that room is going to have it together and I'm not together. And it was all in my head. They were going to be all that in my head. They were all sophisticated women with extremely successful lives, extremely successful businesses. And what am I doing in there? And that, I think, is some of it. But once I got in there, and I will be honest with you and say that obviously it was online, I drove to this event, sat there in the car, and I nearly drove away. And I just thought, no, just do this. You don't ever have to go again. You just don't ever have to go again. In I went, and then the confidence grew. And then I found out that these sort of internal beliefs that I created all in my own mind were actually in my own mind. So I do think sometimes people have concerns that are not there. And I do say, sort of, come and see it. And I think later on, before I became a regional director, I was invited to take over another region in another place. And I thought then I'm not ready. I'm not right for this. But again, that was different internal beliefs. That was more about me believing I wasn't presentable enough, which is just rubbish. So I think it's that. But what I do say to people about networking is go to it, find a group, go and meet some people and listen to what they're doing, find out what their businesses are, find out ways that you can help them, and just contribute to the community. That's one of the best bits, is the part that you bring to it and what you can give for other people and how you can help. So that, I think, is some of it. People think it's for people who've got it all together. And what I've learned in the last 15 or 18 years I've been with Athena, they don't all have it together. That's why we have a networking group, to look after each other and support each other in all areas of our lives.
I have gone to networking events in the past, and yes, I can totally understand they get a little bit anxious because, again, none of us know what we don't know. And especially after, I think, the madness of 4 years ago, I think, people were a little bit, they're just not used to actually interacting in person. But it's such an important part, especially as a lot of people have gone online. And if they're working by themselves, it can be a lonely place, just sat behind your computer screen. So, once a month or however regular these meetings are, to actually get out and be with like-minded women. Yes, I can definitely see the attraction. So, but there's something that's stopping women from sort of reaching out for help. So why else do you think people are sort of, avoiding these opportunities?
Avoiding opportunities to come networking. There's lots of different networking opportunities out there. They come in all different shapes and sizes. So when you start sort of your networking journey to promote your business, it starts with a conversation with somebody you know. Tap into their knowledge about various networks. And you'll hear all sorts of things, negative and positives, about various networks within your communities. And you might go to the wrong one. You might go to a group that doesn't suit you, that you don't feel a part of, that doesn't work with your vibe, that you don't feel at home or you don't feel welcomed. And that's a shame, because networking is all about welcoming people in, meeting new people, helping them bond and helping them grow. But it's also about the skills of networking and how you walk into that room and how you introduce yourself in the first place and how you represent your business to people you haven't met yet, and how you share those networking conversations so that they're even-handed. And that's one of the things that we do, is we really help the woman understand the nuances of networking and how to move around the room. And I think one of the things that people do worry about is, I don't know how to network. I don't know what this is. This isn't in my skill set. But it is. The women we meet, they're mums at schools. They're networking at the park gates, at school gates, with mums about play dates, about how to get kids together to a different club, to a different group. That's networking. It's just in a different context.
So finally, my last question, and I didn't prep you for this, so I'm going to be throwing it out there. Because here at Podcast Profits Limited, we're passionate about making podcasting accessible to everybody who has a business, right? What better way than another way to create content and build relationships at the same time? So if you had your own podcast, what do you think you'd call it?
Oh, well, I love the name that you've given this, Empowering Connections. So I wouldn't borrow that, but I think,
why not?
Why not? Maybe you wouldn't mind. Empowering Connections sounds lovely, but I think it's actually enriching business lives is actually what it is as well. But it moves into your personal life. So I feel that my life has been enriched by this. I didn't know when I went to that first ever networking group what was going to follow. And I feel my life has been enriched. I've grown and I've changed, but my families have. As a consequence, they're getting a happier mum. I don't think that I've ever been happier in any role or any community before. So I'm going to go with that, enriching
Awesome.
business lives.
Perfect. And then finally, so if the listeners, want to find out more about how they can open their own Athena network, how do they reach out to you? Where do they find you?
Okay, so they could look at the Athena website, the athenanetwork.com. I run webinar events for women who might be thinking, what's this all about? Can it work into my world? I run those frequently, so that'll be on the website. But I'm on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn, so I'm all over LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn, check out my posts. But I think what would be nice is as I'm on this show, and it's been really lovely to be a guest on your show, Karen, so thank you. I think what I'd say to any listeners of yours, that women are in the UK who are thinking, what is this? Is this something that I could do? If they sent me a message saying, send me 3 success stories, I'd send them 3 success stories. So that's all they need to do is send me a message, DM, send me 3 success stories, and I'd do that. But I'd love to connect with any of your community. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And to the listeners, I will be back after the ads with my 3 quick tips to land high value guests for your podcast. Be back after the break. Bye for now. So welcome back. And my final piece, my 3 quick tips to land high value guests for your podcast. So number 1 is craft a personalized pitch, because high value guests are busy. Well, I mean, we're all busy, right? So you need to make your outreach stand out. Research that their recent projects, their interests or challenges, and mention those in the invitation. For example, you could say, I loved your recent article on whatever topic. And I think that my audience of whoever your target audience is would gain so much insight from your expertise. You've got to stroke their ego. Now, you could do this even in a video, do a quick Loom video rather than writing it down. Just show them that you're familiar with their work and how appearing on your podcast can actually benefit them, like reaching a new audience or promoting their latest work, their latest endeavor. So that's number 1. Number 2, well, you've got to showcase your podcast's value when you're inviting a guest. Now, don't worry too much about whether you've got if you think you've not got enough downloads or anything like that. Rather, highlight your podcasts. Yes, you want to highlight the reach to a point, but also your credibility and your past successes. So you can share details like who, your audience, your demographics, your listener numbers, if you've got a lot of numbers, otherwise don't, and give the names of other notable guests that you've had on. Even if your podcast is newer, it doesn't matter. Emphasize the engagement or the unique niche of your listeners. So when you're clear, when you're professional, right, and you present your show's value, it can make it a lot more appealing for guests to say yes. Look, remember, people love talking about themselves. So you are doing them a favor by allowing them to share their story and share their expertise. And my third final tip is really leverage warm introductions. So tap into your network that you have already to connect with other high value guests. Ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. So ask previous guests or mutual contacts for introductions. For instance, I know you've been a guest on so many whoever's podcast, right? would you be open to being on mine? They had so many amazing things to say about your insights. So by doing a warm introduction, right, that will add credibility and it'll make your pitch a lot more likely to get noticed. So there you go. My 3 top tips for getting high level guests, right? And I will be back next week with the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast. And if you are a coach or an expert and you would love the opportunity to combine creating content with building relationships and use podcasting as a way to grow your business, come and have a free podcast strategy call. Go to podcastprofitsunleashed.com/appointment. And I'll be back next week. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to today's episode on the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast. If you're a coach, consultant, therapist, or healer who would like to drive sales whilst having fun podcasting, head over to podcastprofitsunleashed.com/free and find out how you can turn your podcast into a sales machine. We'll see you on the next episode.